Today we're going over those cheap players, those sleepers, those guys you're trying to buy low on, those guys you're trying to get for free, those guys you're trying to pick up. Today, one by one, we're going to knock them down. Before we dig in, though, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're talking Dynasty Fantasy Football every day when it comes to rookie drafts, trades, player evaluation. It's all here for free. Click that button, stop missing out. But we got to dig in because we got a lot of players to talk about, like always. But we got to look at A.D. Mitchell today. Wide receiver 59. Didn't get many opportunities. Quarterback situation. Volatile going into 2025. We got Danny Dimes. We got A-Rich there. We got to look at that. However, he's cheap. We got other wide receivers in the offense soaking up targets. He's good at creating separation per the metrics there. On top of that, we can get downfield. We got 4.3 speed. Alec Pierce is a deep ball guy. But maybe we emerge second year, third year, somewhere down the line. We're still very cheap. Maybe you don't like this year's rookie class. When it comes to wide receivers, you're in the third, second round somewhere, and you're like, hey, let's shoot that shot. Here's a guy to shoot that shot on. Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell is the Will Fuller of running backs, which is a rare asset class that you will find at the running back position, because really you got to be a 4-3 guy, and you got to be a guy that gets you a lot of nothing and then some random something. That's what Keaton Mitchell can do when he's healthy, and that's why he really should be stashed, but the market is kind of expensive on him. RB61 off the board, RB67 range when you look at those numbers, when you look at calculator numbers. However, when it comes to trades, very liquid on the market. Maybe a guy you want to get just in case middle of the season, injuries hit. Next thing you know, Keaton Mitchell's getting some touches, and he's a threat to go boom on any given touch. He's also a threat to not hit on any single game. That is the Will Fuller effect. And if you don't want the Will Fuller effect, you just don't chase it. Jalen Polk, wide receiver 73, second round pick in last year's draft. Butt him up against this year's wide receiver class, and he's very competitive still. On top of that, he's cheap. The Patriots with Kayshon Boutte has demonstrated that they can be patient with wide receivers, and they might be patient with him and Baker. They might be, maybe not. But I'd rather pay this price than last year's price to see what happens and him be on the back end of my roster stashed, especially if I'm in an area of the draft where I'm like, I don't like these wide receivers. Maybe he's even cheaper if they draft a wide receiver next week. Maybe that happens. You catch him at like wide receiver 90 price range or a throw-in or whatever, or maybe he gets dropped. Maybe something happens like that. But again, let you know he's cheap. The Patriots have shown that they can be patient with wide receivers. Maybe not always, but they have shown that they can be. Kenny McIntosh. Seattle has two good running backs on the depth chart. They're not looking at moving Kenneth Walker. Zach Charbonnet's there, still on a cheap deal. Odds of them drafting another running back of consequence, it's okay, but not as grand as many other teams. A 7th round running back could zap Kenny McIntosh, but they could also look at this backfield and feel all right, and they can address other position of needs there. That being said, for an RB3, this is a guy to look at if you're really looking at a stash. Ranked as the RB16 off the board here. Cheap running back if you're looking for a cheap back. And if you're looking at the NFL draft, if you're looking at depth charts, Seattle's depth chart with two running backs with draft capital behind them that's getting workload is something you may want to look at. Unless they trade one, which I doubt. But if they do, then maybe that's something. But that's not a forecast or a take. That's just me like rebutting what I just said. Kenny McIntosh is cheap. Ray McLeod's very cheap. He was able to get workload, 8.5 points per game, but 5.1 targets per game. So with this price tag, you're chasing the targets and hopefully landing with some fantasy production here. We do have multiple games with double-digit production. So if you're looking for like a third wheel or backup wide receiver here that can get you something in a pinch, this could be your guy. He's cheap and he's getting workload. The thing is, we got Michael Penix there. There's going to be a little change going into this season, so that might impact an ancillary wide receiver on the team. Izzy Abanikanda on the Niners still. He's on the Niners. He's a good prospect, and he's a deep prospect. And the market notices this because they didn't take him to RB 100 range. So Izzy Abanikanda could be a guy that emerges midseason, could flash a little bit in training camp. He's flashed in training camp before with the Jets. The Jets just keep drafting running backs. The thing about Izzy Abanikanda, though, this could be a time where he emerges. We got an injury history here with Christian McCaffrey. They say he's coming back, but we don't trust him after last year. He's on the depth chart. Running backs deep this year. That could zap him, but I can say that with any RB3 in the league. But compared to other RB3s in the league, he's more talented than a lot of them. That being said, Izzy Abanikanda is a guy to put on notice. Isaiah Davis, too, as an RB3. He's proven he can be productive. He's not lights out. He's a decent talent, but he's not a lights out talent. RB70, it's saying that. He's not too far off in value when it comes to Izzy Abanikanda. When Breece Hall goes down, or if he goes down, they could be just using 2 running backs. They seem like a team that want to use 2 running backs. They keep drafting running backs. And they showed that. They showed their hands weeks 13, 14, 15 by giving them some touches there, giving them some workload. 16 opportunities against Miami, 6 against Jacksonville, with Braylon Allen there getting touches as well. Isaiah Davis is a guy that you can have on the back end of your roster. Manny Wilson is a very dependable running back for an NFL team. He's back with the Packers. If something happens to Josh Jacobs, he'll probably get work with Marshawn Lloyd. Unless Marshawn Lloyd kills it in training camp, that could be a committee between these 2 running backs. They like him. They grinded him out between the tackles. That also might be by default with Lloyd being injured. But they kept giving him opportunities, and he kept doing okay. He kept doing okay. And maybe he sticks around. Maybe he doesn't get zapped by the draft. Maybe we get through training camp, and he's okay. He's on the roster. He's on the depth chart. And maybe if something happens to Josh Jacobs, he can get you 8, 9, 10, 11 fantasy points on any given week. That can help you out in a pinch. Troy Franklin. Put him in this year's wide receiver class, and he's very competitive. Very competitive. On top of that, we're going into year 2. This team traded up for him. Again, sunk cost wasn't too grand for them to get him. In last year's draft, wide receiver 73 in value. Bo Nix targets him. He targets him a lot per route ran. On top of that, 4.3 points per game, 3.3 targets per game. He did have some games where he racked them up, though. 3 games of 5 targets, 1 game of 6 targets. But if we take a step forward in training camp, we develop a little bit more. That rapport with Bo Nix stays true. Maybe if we're even running like a 70% route participation rate next year, and maybe that could be enough to get you wide receiver 3 results that's volatile, and maybe that's enough to get you some good value on the back end of your roster. Audric Estime, we're looking at this running back class. It's very good. Audric Estime is a plotter out there, especially at the NFL level. Good vision at Notre Dame. Good at pounding it between the tackles. Maybe he's not the guy for the Denver Broncos. The price tag is definitely saying that right now, as you're seeing the chart do this. However, he doesn't have to be your guy anymore. He can be just an asset there. After you draft your backs, you see Audric Estime as like the RB2, RB3, RB4 on the team. You pick him up. You see what happens in training camp. You move on from there. Malachi Corley was the Yak King. Malachi Corley's getting a new quarterback. Things are going to be different here. And maybe we take a step forward. A lot cheaper compared to last year's price tag, as we did barely anything last year. Scored like 3 fantasy points in the whole season. But still, you're looking at a wide receiver here that's talented, especially after the catch, that might find some usage as he develops with this team. Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver 71. 10.7 points per game, 8.3 targets per game. Why is he so cheap? 24 years old. Why is he so cheap? This is a good wide receiver to get on the cheap, especially if you're not liking what's available. Quarterback's going to be an issue with the Giants. Probably that's going to be the case for the rest of our lives. Wan'Dale Robinson is cheap right now. You can get cheap production through this guy one way or another. Tutu Atwell's cheap as well. We got some ambiguity at wide receiver with Devontae Adams coming in. That's a new piece to this team. It's going to be looking different. Tutu Atwell got a little bit of money this offseason with that contract. 25 years old. We got speed downfield. Looking at the ancillary wide receivers for the Rams, him, Whittington, some other guys. That could give us some value here on the back end of our rosters. Tutu Atwell's got that speed, the ability to get downfield to splash on any given Sunday. You may want that if you're playing DFS style with your lineups. Jordan Whittington, too. Honestly, just looking at the ancillary wide receivers for the Rams, things are looking a little bit ambiguous going into the year. And we're watching training camp. We're seeing what's happening. We're watching the reps. And we're just paying attention to that. At wide receiver 83, if you like him, he's very cheap. Malik Washington turned some heads in the Shrine game last year. A very good prospect that can create separation on a team that's very explosive. He's cheap in a good situation that could allow him to go off, especially if he develops to his NFL role. Ray Davis, running back 48. Not super cheap, a good stash play / backup, but might get lost in the mix of your trade negotiations as these running backs start to get infused in the league. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to Ray Davis's value. He can be productive. He got some workload last year, so there is some upside to his game. Jacob Cowing. The 49ers are very ambiguous right now. Things are coming and going throughout the offseason. We're seeing Cowing here, who's productive with 2 different collegiate programs, broke out quick with them. He could emerge next year. Could be. He could be the last man on your roster. He could be the last man standing. Could be a guy that gets dropped after the infusion of these rookies. Pay attention to him. He's going to be a cheap dart throw. Austin Eckler. Not super cheap. You're seeing the chart bounce back up. You should have bought a few weeks or a month ago if you're looking for older production. Again, he's older production, but it's at a good value, and he was productive there when he was playing. You're looking at weeks 1 through 11. Most of those games, he was hitting double digits. Probably going to see that while he's on the field. Dylan Labe. The Raiders are in line to pick up a running back in the draft. I don't think that's an argument, but Dylan Labe has the skill set as a cheap dart throw due to his ability to catch passes out of the backfield with how electric he is. And maybe that can get you like 8, 9, 10, 11 points somewhere down the line in a short spurt of games. Or maybe he just develops as a role player for this team. And maybe that's enough in a deeper dynasty league where you want to keep him stashed just in case injuries hit and that evolves to more. Ben Sinnott is always a good stash tight end. The price is very palatable right now, especially if you're not in love with this rookie class, or if you're in a spot here where you want to get him because you wanted him last year, but he was too expensive. Now might be your next go around. He might be a guy that's on your radar. Those are the stash plays for this week. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.